What is going on, 5'9" gamers, and welcome back to the 5'9" mobile channel. So as you guys have probably seen from the title and the thumbnail, MVP 17's EZA is coming. So we asked you guys on Twitter and all that fun stuff to submit some fan-made forms, giving us your custom concepts, your ideas, mechanics, what have you, that would come with the MVP 17 EZA. Now, we know that this guy should be a very impactful EZA, and a lot of teams are going to benefit from his presence, and there are a couple things I think you guys are going to be able to cook up that'll be really fun to kind of take a look at. So, without further ado, let's go ahead and hop into the fan-made submissions.
Hey guys, it's your boy, the Masked Ningen here to bring you my pick for the MVP fan-made EZA, and this one comes to us from Peerless Gleam. So, I quite liked this one because I tried to pick out one that I thought would be really good, but also like a very realistic expectation of what we could get, because obviously when we do these fan-made card things, very often we get submissions that are just completely busted, like would be absolutely the best card in the game, hands down, and those are fun to look at sometimes, don't get me wrong, but I wanted to pick out one that I thought would be not only a realistic choice, but would actually be very good. So shout out to Peerless Gleam for this one. The super attack effect is massively raises defense for 1 turn, does immense damage to the enemy, and lowers attack and defense. Now, massively raising defense is a 100% defense raise. There's not a huge amount of like quote-unquote premium units that have this. The Supreme Kai of Time from Heroes that got her EZA has massively raises, and it is very, very good for a unit that's going to be floating in slot 3 as a support, which is realistically where this 17 is going to get used the most, right? You can throw him on a whole bunch of teams that he's on, and he's basically just going to be there to be a floating support unit. So getting the huge buff to defense is obviously very good. And then, of course, if you get an additional super, then that's another massively raised, then his defense is going to be looking very, very good. So moving on to the passive skill, attack and defense 170 when performing a super attack. So again, we're still kind of playing into just him being used in slot 3 as a floating support unit, because you can't really put him in slot 1 when he's only getting his buffs actually on super attack. And then all allies, key 3 and defense 60%. Representatives of Universe 7 allies attack 30%. So obviously, like, we could be tempted to go all out and make him an attack and defensive support for like everyone. But I do quite like this, right? Because it gives you that little extra incentive to use him on the reps of Universe 7 team. Now, I suppose he's probably going to be a staple on that team anyway, right? As long as his EZA is pretty good. Especially with the recent EZA for the STR Blue Kaioken Goku. And obviously he wants to be run with those other reps of Universe 7 units. So this guy giving him a little bit of extra attack on top of all the defense would definitely be very good. Then he launches an additional attack that has a high chance of becoming a super when HP is above 77%. So of course, as we already said, that gives you another massively raises defense, which would be very good, because you could then still get the hidden potential additional. So he could triple super if your HP is above 77%. And then he still has the damage reduction. It's now 50% when HP is 77% or less. So I kind of like this, right? Because with the MVP 17 pre-EZA, it is a little bit annoying that he only has the damage reduction when he's under a certain amount of HP, because that is obviously very useful defensive tech for him. So rather than just give him blanket, like he just has damage reduction all the time, which, you know, in theory would of course be the best option, that would make him very powerful. I kind of like the fact that they've supplemented in here. He still has a HP restriction for the damage reduction, and the damage reduction has increased, but now if you're above that HP, you get a chance to perform an additional super, which, as we've already said, that's going to massively raise his defense. So on turns where he's sat in slot 3 and you're above 77% HP, and then he potentially triple supers, when you consider him having like EZA stats and everything, his defense is going to be incredibly high. So he'll be very, very good at tanking. And honestly, when it comes to third slot floating support units with the ever increasing difficulty level of like the hardest content in the game, you want your support units to be able to actually survive in slot 3, right? So I feel like this guy has a very strong build overall for being very good defensively, and I like the fact that it has a little bit of variety to it. Like I said, we could have just slapped on like gives everybody attack, always has damage reduction, but I quite like this because Dokkan, you know, they don't usually give us all this stuff for free, so having these things still behind a little bit of a restriction, but one that is not too bad, I think is a very good design. So once again, shout out to Peerless Gleam. I think that one was very, very good. And let's see what's next.
Okay, we have MP17, and I'm very excited for his Easy Ace. So we're going to go over my pick for the fan-made cards. And there's a couple of really good ones, I feel. This one really did catch my eye because I like how they designed him overall to work. So again, this MP17 is one of my personal, like, most anticipated Ezas. Hopefully they don't screw him up. We'll see what happens though. So they give a super attack effect, attack and defense raise for the turn, immense damage, and he lowers attack and defense. So he always did debuff, if I'm remembering correctly, but giving him this 30% attack and defense raise, that is pretty spicy. That's just a bare minimum we need, like a defense raise on turn on super attack, right? Like, without that, your unit becomes a lot less valuable. It just, the multiplicative buffs are so important, man. I've been talking about that for like years at this point, but whew, that multiplicative buff is crazy. Now, this 17 concept, he got attack and defense plus 120% when performing a super attack. The defense part added was new. 70% attack and defense starter turn, which is also very, very good. So the starter turn on super attack, then super attack effect here, this will work very, very well together. Then on top of that, he gives all allies key 3 and 60% defense. That doesn't change. I don't expect them to change that unless they add like a little bit of attack somewhere. But I feel like what's going to happen is going to be like this concept where there's defense here still that stays the exact same and then attack somewhere else, right? Very, very likely. But this 17, I feel like this is not an unrealistic expectation of what they're going to do with them. In fact, that's kind of like very, very exactly similar to what my concept was. Now, this concept right here. Reduces damage received by 30%, and then all allies 30% attack as the third attacker in the turn. I really like that because they designed these EZAs to be just extra spots for the team, like your 5th or 6th option on the team. Most of the time, that's what this EZA is supposed to be. And especially since this guy is going to be a support unit, you're going to ideally want him floating around, right? You're going to, most of the time, have this guy in the 3rd slot. Not only because he gets all of his attack and defense on super attack, but he's a support unit. That's just what his role is going to be. So him getting this extra buff as a 3rd attacker in the turn is very, very nice. And then right here you see he does still have damage reduction of 40% when HP is 77% or below. I'm not sure if this stacks together. I feel like it might stack together where it's 40% plus 30% instead of just 40% in general when that's activated. If that's the case, then as a 3rd attacker of the turn, he's pretty much invincible. You're like, you're literally going to be unable to die. And I think that's what the idea is because obviously 17, right? They're like doing that a lot with 17s. And this little extra attack buff, I just want to point out, that's cool. I don't think it's like the biggest deal ever, but again, it strengthens him and his role. I think this is a really, really well designed EZA, so kudos to you, Leon, right there. Thank you very much for your submission. I'm not sure if I'm the last one, I don't think I am, but just in case, you know, thank you all for your submissions, and we'll probably move on to the next creator, we'll see, right?
What's going on, 5'9 Gamers? Joe Wags here with another fan-made card, and today we are looking at the physical MVP 17. Very, very hype unit that we are all very excited to get. So I chose this particular design because I think if they actually made 17 this good, he would be really busted. And I want him to be busted because he's a really good support unit that you could use on a lot of teams, right? So this design comes from Shinobu's My Goat. So thank you for the submission there. Super attack effect. Greatly raises defense, raises attack for 1 turn, causes immense damage, and lowers attack and defense. So 17 originally just lowered attack and defense, so getting the 1 turn defense raise and attack raise would be really good. The way this is worded, and I don't know if they intended it like this, but this would not be infinitely stacking defense. When we have other cards that are worded like this, they're both 1 turn, but it's because one is great and the other is regular. They kind of word it funky, but they're both 1 turn. Infinite stacking would be insane for 17, by the way, but this particular design does not need infinite stacking, and you'll see why. So the passive. So previously 17, I think, just got, what was it, like just attack 120 while performing a super, right? So now they're going to get attack and defense 120 while performing a super, and attack and defense 170 at start of turn. I do think having attack and defense 170 is actually very realistic, because with these androids like 17, 18, 16, they like to incorporate their numbers into the kits, right? And then also Reps of Universe 7, they like to incorporate 7s. So I think 170 or even 177, I think either of those are possibilities, but I think giving them that start of turn is really important, right? Then all allies key 3 and defense 60%. He already had the key 3 defense, so even if they don't change that, he's still going to be really good with his EZ8, right? But then I like this. Let's add attack plus 40 for Universal Survival Saga category allies. I like that. So then make him a full-on support, right? I think that could be really, really good. And then reduces damage by 40%. Now, the way he worked previously was he only reduced damage by 40% when HP is below 77%. What they're doing is they're taking that restriction off and just saying he gets 40% damage reduction always, right? And then he's going to give him an additional damage received reduced by 37% if HP is 77% or below. So basically, if you're below 77%, what we're looking at 77% damage reduction. Now that might be a little bit too busted with the amount of defense this guy's going to have, but dude, I would take it, right? Or I could see them doing something where maybe he does get up to 77% damage reduction, but maybe only against Universal Survival Saga. Like, I definitely could see that, because then we're looking at like a God Goku situation where he's got really good damage reduction, but it's only against certain typings. I could definitely see that as well. The other thing I think is more likely that they would do is they would just keep the 40% when below 77, and then they could just add the 37, like just swap places and do 37 always and then 40% if below. They would probably be more likely to do that. But I like this concept, right? And then he performs an additional super when there is a Universal Survival Saga category ally attacking the same turn. So I like this build for a couple reasons. One is I think some form of this is actually very realistic. Now I think this guy pretty much, 77% with just being below 77% HP. I mean, that might be enough of a restriction, right? But I mean, we've seen with God Goku how dominant that is in terms of damage reduction, and I think this guy would have much better defense than God Goku, so that might be a little bit too broken, but I think in some way, if we can get rid of the restriction on the 40% and then add a little bit on, like something like this, I think is really good. So anyways, guys, that is the fan-made design I have for you. I am going to pass it off to the next one.
What is going on, guys of 5'9 Mobile? Welcome again to a new fan-made video, obviously, and yeah, I'm pretty excited about this EZA because honestly, MVP 17 is one of the units that back, obviously when it first released, was a big deal and a great defensive juggernaut. And I'm really excited to kind of talk about it here because of the fact that I feel as though this one encapsulates the defensive juggernaut Ness, whatever you want to call it. So big shout out to Sephirix over, it looks like on Discord. So thank you so much for submitting your submission at this point. Let's go ahead and talk about the super attack. Greatly raises defense for 1 turn and causes immense damage and lowers attack and defense. Now that's pretty decent. I can't really say that it's bad, obviously, because it's a super attack, so you're hoping to at least get it going, especially with greatly raises defense. I think greatly, if I remember correctly, is 50%. So a 50% boost in defense on top of what's going on, like, right here is pretty good. So let's go ahead and talk about the passive skill now. Attack and defense plus 150%, attack and defense plus 120% when performing a super attack. All allies key plus 3 and defense plus 60%. Reduces damage by 50% when HP is 77% and below. Guards if HP is 77% and above. Restores 10% HP after receiving a hit at the end of the turn. Now, I think this is great, and mainly it's the last two things. Like, we can always talk about stat boost, which is fantastic, but I feel as though when you have something that's like, you get a certain thing when your HP is below a certain threshold, you should get a boost when you have something above the threshold as well in some sort of capacity. And I feel that guard is the perfect choice for this because, again, like, yeah, guard is better than damage reduction, I feel, in most cases, but at the same time, like, you have a benefit on either 77% and above or below. So I feel that was a really, really good choice to put the guard there. Also, restoring 10% HP after receiving a hit at the end of the turn, I think is a really, really good addition as well, because again, you know, it may not seem like much, but that 10% HP is going to help out a lot, especially if you want to keep 17's passive up if 17 has this same passive. So I feel that this was a perfect example of, I feel, not entirely balance, but obviously like certain aspects to your HP are going to take effect for this passive. So I really like this. Zephyrix, thank you so much again for the submission. And of course, guys, you know, see you in the next fan-made video.
Okay, so this submission is coming from Mr. Baby, the man who cannot defeat Legic, allegedly. Let's go ahead and take a look and see what he is cooking up for us. Oh, Mr. Baby. Greatly raises attack and defense for 1 turn and causes immense damage to the enemy and greatly lowers attack and defense. Now, I like that a lot. I think, you know, the self-sufficient buffs as well as the enemy debuffs in places like Super Battle Road, Extreme Super Battle Road, and in the content like the Shadow Dragon fights where you actually can, some of them, lower the attack of the enemy. I think that could be very important. So let's go ahead and look at the passive skill. We have defense and 160% at the start of turn, attack 160% performing a super attack, all allies key 4 and defense plus 60. That is really, really good. Like key 4 and defense plus 60%. Like that key 4 alone is super overpowered, and then adding additional defense to that is crazy. Reduces damage received by 40% when HP is 80% or below. I prefer it to be unconditional, but I do understand where you're coming from. Performs an additional super attack when HP is 60% or below, so you get a double lowering of the enemy defense and then attack as well as the raise for themselves. When HP is 60% or below, and guards all attacks within the same turn after receiving an attack. Very good, kind of akin to physical Super Saiyan Bardock, and performs a critical hit when all allies attacking in the same turn are on reps of U7. So you'd really want to run this guy on reps of 7 to get his offense, but he would still bring defense and utility to the table. So, Mr. Baby cooked up a fire submission here. I do like this. I would say this would make him very good. The only thing I would change is we get the damage reduction permanently just to make him a complete tank all the time, but I do understand the 80% or below condition. So, let's go ahead and move on.